welcome to my creative space. Thank you so much for being here. Today's video was a suggestion from a longtime friend, so thank you, Elena, for the idea. Let's get started with 5 DIY centerpieces. For this pumpkin centerpiece, I will be using this pumpkin from Walmart that was only 25 cents and this backlit from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to fill in the crevices of the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. Once I'm done filling in all the crevices, I will be patting this on the pumpkin to make sure that everything is all the way pushed down and it's kind of smooth. The spackling should be dry within 30 minutes. I left mine outside for like an hour, and then after that I grabbed this sanding sheet and I started sanding my spackling to try to get it as smooth as I could, and this is what it looked like at the end. And now I just spray painted my pumpkin a white-ish color. Here is all the stuff I will be using to decorate my pumpkin with, and everything came from the Dollar Tree. As you can see, my pumpkin didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, but it's okay because I'm gonna cover that up later. I'm starting by trimming down the handle of this pumpkin and then moving on to grabbing my floral foam and adding some hot glue on there and then putting it right into the pumpkin, and then I glue this one as well, and it's going to get sideways so I can get it a little taller. And that way all my greenery is sitting higher in the pumpkin. All right, I'm grabbing my leaves, and I only found 3 of these bouquets that go with my decoration colors that I picked. So I am spreading this out to make sure that I get the most out of these. So I'm just spreading them as I am applying them in the pumpkin. Now I'm just trying to adjust my leaves to make sure that they are even. All right, I'm going to grab these little bowls that are covered in glitter, and I'm trimming down the 3 pieces that come in the little greenery piece, and I'm going to start applying them to my pumpkin randomly. I have forgotten about the moss. I should have done this before I started putting all my greenery in, but I remember now, so now I'm just going to stuff my pumpkin with this. Now I'm grabbing these pine cones and I'm going to remove the red berries that came with it because I don't need them. They don't go with the colors I'm going for. And I will also be removing the green leaves because they also don't go with the colors I'm trying to go for. And then once I take all that stuff out, I'm going to stick them in the pumpkin and I'm going to spread them apart as much as I can. Now I'm going to grab this that they look like little branches that are a little bit frosted, and I'm going to start I also took those apart and I just spread them randomly around the pumpkin. I also have those same ones but in gold, so I will also be taking those apart and spreading them around my pumpkin. So one of the dollar stores I went to had this super cute dry grass. I wish they would have had more, but I only found one. It's super cute. I loved it. I think it gave my pumpkin a different look. I also took those and I just spread them around my pumpkin, and I love this. I decided to add more moss because everything kind of got pushed down, so I'm just adding more so it kind of sticks out a little bit. This pumpkin looks so cute already, but the part that I added this backlit, it's kind of bumpy and I don't like it, so I am going to be using this ribbon and creating a bow to put it on in front of that part to try to cover that up. Now that I like this bow, I'm going to hot glue it in place. And here is a picture of how this beautiful pumpkin turned out and how it looks on my table. For this centerpiece, I will be using this Dollar Tree basket as well as this burlap ribbon, and I'm going to take this out and I'm going to start by gluing this down with hot glue on one of the corners at the bottom. Now that my ribbon is glued down, I'm going to take this burlap ribbon and kind of measure around to trim this, because I am going to start running this through. It's basically, I'm gonna go in and out until I complete this. I know I'm not the best at explaining things, so I'm gonna let you watch what I'm doing. I get back to where I started, I am going to glue down my ribbon. Now I am going to be doing the exact same thing on the top part, and this time I'm gonna glue my ribbon on the next little wire piece, not at the same level as the one I glue at the bottom, because I don't want the metal pieces to show all the way down. I know I'm not the best at explaining things, I am so sorry. So this is basically what I'm talking about. As you can see there, like not the same wire on the top and on the bottom is showing. Because this basket is a little bit more wider at the top, I am tugging on this ribbon to make sure that it's tight and it's not going to look ruffly, if that makes any sense. And once I'm happy with how tight it is, I am going to glue this into place. Now that that is completed, I am going to take a piece of cardboard and I am going to trace kind of like the shape of my basket, and then I'm going to take my scissors and cut that to be able to put that inside, and then be able to take my fluorofoam and be able to glue it into place. Because the wire is the basket, it is wire and it doesn't have nothing to grab onto. So now that I have the piece of cardboard, it's able to sit on there safely. All right, now I'm taking my leaves and I'm going to be trimming those apart. I'm going to take my Spanish moss and fill in my basket. You see what I did here? Now I did realize it before I started stuffing things into place. All right, now that my moss is in there, I decided to glue down my little piece of cardboard because it was moving around. Now I'm just going to start applying my leaves and I'm going to make sure that they're even spread. Now I'm going to take my glittery stems and I'm going to take those apart, and I'm going to also apply them to my basket, and I'm going to randomly just apply them. Now I'm taking the pine cones and I'm taking those apart because I want to be able to spread them out on my basket. So I'm just randomly going to apply those as well. Now I'm taking some of those glittery berries and I'm going to apply those as well. This is what my little basket looks already and I love it, but I think it's missing something, so I'm going to be creating a little bow. So I'm going to be taking the same burlap ribbon that I used for my basket, and I am going to create a little bow. And once I'm happy with my little bow, I am going to glue it in place with some hot glue. here is a picture of my little basket. I think it turned out super cute. For this centerpiece, I am going to be using these glass jars that I found at the Dollar Tree, and I'm removing the lids because I'm going to spray paint them, and I already had this paint on hand, so I'm going to use this paint. Alright, I'm going to be using 3 of these little trays, and I'm removing the wider sides. On 2 of them, I remove one side, and the one that is going to go in the middle, I remove both of the wider sides. They're super easy to do, and you just pull on them and they come right off. Now that I have my little box, I'm going to glue the 3 pieces together, and I'm using hot glue for that. It was not hard at all, and I just apply hot glue on them and glue them all together. There's some little gaps in between each box, so I just fill it in with hot glue. Now I'm taking this brown Dollar Tree paint and this brush, and I'm going to be painting my box. You could leave it like that, but I want mine to be a little bit darker, so I'm taking this paint, and I actually like this paint because it's kind of watery, so it works as like a stain more than like a paint. I'm assuming that if you put enough coats you can get it dark, but I love how this looks with just a little bit of paint on it. This is what it ended up looking after I was done painting this. Okay, now that my jars have dried, I'm going to be using this burlap ribbon, and I'm going to take the one that has the lace on it, and I'm going to just cut a piece off and wrap it around my little jar. I glue this into place with hot glue, and I end up doing 2 of this. For my leftover jar, I took the plain burlap ribbon and I just took a little piece and glued that into place. Once that was glued down, I decided I wanted to give my little jar a little something else, and so I grabbed my rope and I just started wrapping it around. No specific way, just randomly on there, and I loved how it looked, and I decided I wanted to create a little bow, so I used the lace that came with that other ribbon and I created a little bow, and then I just tied it together with a little bow from the rope. And I love how this little jar looks now. Now I'm taking this smaller burlap ribbon and I'm going to start gluing this around my box. I thought that my box was kind of plain, so I decided to add this ribbon, and I love this. Now that I'm happy with this box, I'm going to start putting my jars into place, and I put the lids back on there. Okay, I'm taking these candles, and because the jars do have that candle holder, I just added some hot glue on there and then sat the candle in it. I did have to let them dry for a little bit before I start putting my greenery in there, but it worked out fine. This greenery came from the Dollar Tree and I couldn't believe it. It looks so good and I love how this turns out. So I didn't do anything special with it. I just literally grabbed my piece of greenery and put it inside my jar. Now I'm grabbing my Spanish moss and I'm going to stuff my little box, and I forgot to mention, or I didn't record this, but I ended up grabbing 2 of the bigger white candles and I stuff them in between the jars. You'll see in a second when I turn my box around. There they are. So I put those 2 candles in there and I love how this turns out. And here is a picture of my centerpiece, and this one was one of my favorites. I'm not gonna lie, this turned out so good. I could definitely see this at a wedding. Can you imagine that? I love it. For this project, I will be using this 3D wreath that I found at the Dollar Tree, this piece of wood that I already had on hand, this greenery, and also a gold metallic spray paint. Taking the wreath, and I'm going to be using 3 of these rings that come with this, and I'm gonna put the other one to the side. I will not be using it. And now I'm going to bend them back and forth, and I will be creating a large, medium, and small ring with this, and they're very easy to do. You just have to bend them back and forth. Here I have all my 3 rings, and I was just testing them to make sure that they were going to fit and that they look okay. All right, now I'm going to take a ruler and a pencil and find the middle of this piece of wood. And then after I figure out where is the middle on both sides, I'm taking my drill and I'm creating a hole big enough to fit my 3 rings inside. Once I'm done creating the holes, this is what the piece looks like. And now I will be taking my glue gun and I'm going to fill it in with hot glue, and I'm going to start putting my rings in the hole. I put the large and then the medium and then the small in that order, and then I bended the ends on the rings to make sure that they were gonna fit and they were not going to look weird. And then I just fill in with a little bit more glue on there to make sure that they were going to be safe. Now I'm gonna go spray paint this and wait until it dries so we can move on. Here is what my piece looks like once it's completed. I'm going to start by taking my greenery and I'm going to start removing the little stems off the whole bouquet. Now before I move on, I'm going to grab my glue gun and I'm going to glue some Spanish moss on my piece of wood. So I'm just adding glue and then adding the moss and pushing it down to make sure that it is glued into place. Now I'm taking 2 of the glittery branches. I picked the longer ones and I am going to be sitting those on top of the moss. And once I'm happy of how I positioned them, I'm going to grab my glue gun and I'm going to glue those into place. This is what it's looking like so far. Now I'm going to take these flowers that I got from the Dollar Tree and I'm going to pick the bigger one and I'm gluing that one down right in the middle. And then I will be taking 2 a little bit smaller ones and I'm gonna glue those to the sides of this one. Now I'm taking the leftover glittery stems and I'm removing those off, and I will be removing the little leaves off the little branch, and I'm going to cut this down and removing any little plastic pieces that they have left from the stem. And once I do that, I'm going to start gluing them to try and create little flowers with them. So I'm going to add glue and then crisscrossing one on top, and then after that I will be putting the smallest one right on top, as you can see there. So I put 2 of the bigger ones and then the smallest one on top, and there you have a flower. Now I'm adding some glue, applying it to the little wire, and then I will be putting the other piece behind it just like that to make sure that it stays in place, and also I'm not able to see the hot glue on there. I end up creating 13 little flowers for the very top ring and then 6 for the bottom one. It's a picture of how this centerpiece turned out. I think this one turned out so beautiful and elegant. I can also see this one at like a wedding or a big quinceañera party. Absolutely. This project, I'm going to be using these bamboo skewers that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm grabbing my ruler and I'm going to mark them 6 inches wide, or 6 inches long, I'm sorry, and I'm going to trace 12 of them the same length. Now that all my 12 sticks are marked, I am going to take this hand pruner, I believe it's called. It's a gardening tool, and I'm going to trim all the pieces And now that I have all my pieces cut, I'm going to start gluing them into place. And what I did with this, I added a little bit of glue on there, and then before it completely dry, I kind of pushed the glue together to make sure that the corners were going to be glued together. All right, here you have it. One of them is completed, and I will show you once I'm done with the other one. There you have it. Two of them are completed. And now for the last 4 sticks, I'm going to add some glue and start gluing them to one of the squares that I already put together. And I'm going to be doing the exact same thing where before it completely dries, I kind of mold the glue to cover both of the sticks and make sure that it's grabbing onto both of them. And now on the last step, I'm going to put the glue on the 4 corners, and then I'm going to put the pieces together. Okay, I want my cube to be sitting on an angle, so what I'm going to do, or what I did, I traced 2.5 inches on the 3 sides that I want my cube to sit on, and then I cut them off, and then I just glue new pieces into place to be able to use those to sit my cube in an angle. So there you have it. There is the stick I'm grabbing and I'm marking it. I'm going to cut it to size, and then I'm going to hot glue it into place, and I'm gonna do the same thing, and it's going to create a triangle that will hold the piece in an angle. Okay, now I completed one, and I went ahead and created 2 smaller ones the exact same way. And once those were completed, I spray painted them with this metallic gold paint. To decorate my cube, I will be taking this little greenery pieces that I found at the Dollar Tree, as well as these candles. I grabbed 2 of these, and I'm going to be taking those little pieces apart. Each branch, flowers, all that, I'm going to take them apart, because I'm going to grab my little candle and I'm going to create a little wreath that is going to go at the bottom. So for that, I'm starting with this green little branches with leaves, and I'm just gluing those with hot glue to create a little circle that is going to go at the bottom of my little candle. Now that I created the base of this little wreath, I'm going to fill in the spaces that I feel that need more leaves with the remainder leaves that I have left from this little bouquet. Now I'm gonna take these purple flowers and start adding them to my little wreath. And this is what my little wreath looks like, and now I'm gonna set it to the side. And now I'm grabbing the second piece of greenery that I have and taking those pieces apart as well. And I'm grabbing 2 with the ones with the purple flowers, and I'm going to glue those on the top corner. Now that I picked exactly how I want my little cubes to sit, I'm gonna glue those, start gluing those into place. Now I'm going to take this little purple flowers that I also got from the Dollar Tree, and I am adding some glue, and I'm gonna glue that in between the 2 pieces of greenery that I already have glued into place. And now I'm going to take 2 of the little pieces of greenery that I cut off, and I'm going to glue those on the back to make it look fuller. Now I'm taking 2 of this little smaller purple flowers, and I'm going to glue those on each side of the other purple flower I glue in the middle. So I'm just adding hot glue to glue those into place. Now I'm grabbing 3 of the branches that had the longer purple flowers, and I'm going to glue those into a wreath as well around this candle, which also, by the way, this candle also came from the Dollar Tree. It's a bigger and chunkier candle. But anyway, I'm going to glue those 3 pieces together. I'm sorry, I know this is not the best angle. I apologize for that, but I'm taking 2 of the branches that have the little green leaves on only, and I'm going to fill the spaces that I think need more, or they need more leaves to fill them in. And that is what it looks like once I put it in my little cube. This 3D cube looks amazing. I love this, but I wanted to use this little strips that come with the bouquets, and I was originally going to put them at the bottom around my candle, but then I decided that they didn't look as good. So I decided that I want them to go up next to the or on the top greenery part, and so I just added some hot glue and glued those into place. Okay, for the top part, you could see all the glue that I had added. So I decided to add a little piece of greenery to cover that up. And I also added a little purple flower to kind of cover all that stuff up because it kind of looked messy. Here is a picture of how amazing this centerpiece turned out. I absolutely love it. It's also one of my favorites. Please let me know in the comments down below which one was your favorite, and if you're going to recreate any of them. Please also help me share my videos. I would greatly appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe and give my video a thumbs up, and I will see you on my next DIY. Bye!